I remember the day I first noticed something was off with Jenna. We had been married for 5 years, and while I thought we were in a good place, there was a shift in the air, subtle but unmistakable. It started with small things. She was distracted during dinner, often lost in thought, her once vibrant laughter replaced by a distant smile. She'd come home late more often, claiming work was piling up, but I knew her job as a marketing manager at a tech company was stable. I shrugged it off at first, thinking it was just stress or perhaps the routine of married life creeping in. But then I noticed the little changes that didn't add up. She was spending more time on her phone, texting in secret, and when I asked about her day, her responses were vague and evasive. There was a new perfume, too, one I had never smelled before. It lingered on her clothes, a scent that clung to her like a shadow. I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid, but the nagging doubts gnawed at me. Then came the day that changed everything, a Thursday evening to be exact. I was wrapping up my work on a freelance project at home when I heard her laughing. It was a sound I hadn't heard in a while, and my heart sank when I realized it was coming from the direction of her phone. I glanced over to see her sitting on the couch, giggling at something on the screen, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I felt an uneasy twist in my stomach. Curiosity got the better of me. I stood up, pretending to grab a glass of water from the kitchen, but my eyes were glued to her. She caught me looking and quickly put the phone down, a guilty look flashing across her face. She tried to play it off, tossing her hair over her shoulder and said, "Just some funny memes from Lisa." But Lisa was her old college roommate who had moved to another state. They barely talked anymore. That's when I knew I had to dig deeper. The next day, while Jenna was out for a supposed girls' night, I took the chance to go through her things. I wasn't proud of it, but my mind was racing with possibilities. Underneath her stack of magazines, I found a crumpled receipt from a local hotel from a couple of weeks back. My heart dropped. I quickly pulled out my phone and started searching for the name on the receipt. It was a hypnotist's name, and I remembered Jenna mentioning a new wellness trend she wanted to try. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. Was she seriously seeing a hypnotist? Was this some sort of midlife crisis? I couldn't shake the feeling that this was much more than just an innocent wellness retreat. I knew I had to confront her. When she got home, I felt like a volcano ready to erupt. I confronted her in the living room, holding up the receipt like it was a trophy of betrayal. "What's this, Jenna?" I demanded, my voice trembling with anger and disbelief. She went pale, but then her face twisted into a mask of defiance. "It's nothing, just a session to help me deal with stress," she shot back, but I could see through her facade. "I know you've been lying to me. This isn't just about stress. Why are you seeing this guy?" I felt like a fool for not noticing sooner. Her excuses tumbled out in a frantic rush, claims of self-discovery and how I wouldn't understand. I wanted to scream, to shake some sense into her, but I stood there, listening to the barrage of half-truths and evasions, my heart breaking more with each word she uttered. As the evening wore on, I felt a mixture of rage and profound sadness. The woman I loved was slipping away, wrapped up in delusions of grandeur with some charlatan. How could she throw away everything we had built together? What had I done to push her into the arms of a hypnotist? In that moment, I resolved, if she wanted to live in a fantasy, I would make sure she faced the harsh truth. I would expose this supposed healer for the fraud he was and shatter her delusions once and for all. I wouldn't let her drag me down with her. It was time to wake her up to reality. Looking back, I could feel the bitterness rise within me, but I was fueled by a sense of purpose. I knew what I had to do next, and it was going to take every ounce of strength. I had left. The days following that confrontation were a blur of anger and confusion. Jenna's excuses hung in the air like a thick fog, making it hard to breathe. I spent hours ruminating over what she'd said, trying to make sense of her actions. The idea of her being seduced by a hypnotist was absurd, yet here I was, knee-deep in this surreal nightmare. I couldn't shake the image of her laughing and giggling with him, her mind clouded by his manipulative words. I decided I couldn't just sit back and let this continue. I had to know more about this so-called hypnotist, and if he was the source of Jenna's apparent transformation, I needed to expose him for what he really was. I turned to the internet, searching for his name. Dr. Nathaniel Marks. a name that would soon become synonymous with my anguish. What I found made my stomach churn. His website was filled with glowing testimonials from clients who claimed he'd changed their lives. Losing weight, overcoming anxiety, discovering hidden potentials. It was all too good to be true. And that's when I spotted something that set my alarm bells ringing, a section labeled Success Stories. It was packed with photos, but one stood out, a snapshot of a woman who looked eerily similar to Jenna. The realization hit me like a truck. My wife wasn't the first to fall into his web. I dug deeper, uncovering articles from local forums filled with warning signs. People had accused Dr. Marks of exploiting vulnerable individuals who were searching for answers. Some claimed he preyed on their weaknesses, using hypnosis as a cover for manipulative behavior. The more I read, the more my blood boiled. This fraud was not just some harmless therapist, he was a predator. Armed with this information, I began to sketch out a plan. I decided to reach out to some of the people who had posted their experiences online. I couldn't let Jenna remain in this delusional state, thinking this man was some sort of miracle worker. I needed evidence of his deceit. Over the next few days, I got in touch with a few individuals who had been through similar situations. They were kind enough to share their experiences, and I documented everything meticulously. One woman, Lisa, shared that she had been in a similar state of mind as Jenna before realizing the hypnotist was a fraud. She had managed to get out before it was too late, but her story was filled with regret and sadness. With their stories in hand, I felt a sense of determination. I reached out to a few local news stations, hoping to gain some traction, but many brushed me off as a disgruntled husband. I knew I needed to be more strategic. That's when I decided to take a different approach: social media. I crafted a detailed post explaining my experience, urging others to share and comment if they had similar encounters with Dr. Marks. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, my post had gone viral in the local community. People began chiming in, relaying stories of manipulation and emotional abuse at the hands of the hypnotist. I felt a surge of power. This was not just about me anymore, but about exposing a larger truth. Meanwhile, Jenna was blissfully unaware of my crusade. She continued her sessions with Dr. Marks, claiming to be unlocking her true self. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here she was, diving deeper into her illusions, and I was doing everything in my power to drag her back to reality. I couldn't tell her about my efforts yet. I wanted to wait for the right moment when the truth would hit her hardest. As I gathered more evidence and connected with others, I plotted a confrontation that would be unforgettable. I envisioned setting up a meeting with Jenna, one where I would reveal everything: the testimonials, the stories, the truths she was too blind to see. It would be a reckoning, a moment where she would have to face the reality of her choices, to wake up from the delusion she had wrapped herself in. But I also felt a creeping sense of fear. What if she didn't believe me? What if her trust in him was so strong that no amount of evidence would sway her? Each scenario ran through my head, and I had to remind myself that I was doing this not just for me, but for her. Someone had to break through the fog, and if it had to be me, then so be it. As I sat down to prepare for our impending confrontation, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the world on my shoulders. The stakes had never been higher, and I was filled with a mix of dread and resolve. I was ready to shatter her illusions and show her the truth. It was time for the hypnotist's charade to end, and for her to wake up to the reality she had chosen to ignore. The night of the confrontation arrived, and I could hardly contain my nerves. I had prepared everything meticulously. I gathered all the evidence I had collected: printed testimonials, messages from others who had similarly been misled by Dr. Marks, and even a collection of the negative articles I had uncovered about him. I arranged them neatly on the dining table, like pieces of a dark puzzle, waiting to reveal the full picture to Jenna. When she walked in that evening, her demeanor was relaxed, perhaps too relaxed. She was laughing, her cheeks flushed from whatever emotional high she was riding after her latest session with the hypnotist. I tried to maintain my composure. I didn't want her to see how anxious I was. I had to be strong, to provide the wake-up call she so desperately needed. "Hey, love, you won't believe what Dr. Marks said today," she exclaimed as she tossed her bag onto the couch. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Here she was, completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. "Actually, Jenna, I have something I need to share with you first," I said, my voice steady despite the churn of emotions inside. "Can we sit down for a moment?" She raised an eyebrow but nodded, sensing the gravity in my tone. We settled at the dining table, the evidence spread out between us like a wall. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. "I need to talk about Dr. Marks." Her smile faded and I watched as confusion crept into her expression. "What about him?" "I've done some digging, Jenna. I've talked to people who have been hurt by him. They shared stories of manipulation, emotional abuse, and deception." I picked up the printed testimonials and laid them in front of her. "This isn't just harmless hypnosis, it's emotional exploitation." She looked at the papers, her brow furrowing in disbelief. "What? That doesn't make any sense. Those people must have misunderstood or had their own issues." I felt a tightening in my chest. Here it was, the first line of defense. "That's what I thought too, but listen to me. I've spoken to these people. They all told me similar stories, how they were drawn in by his charm and promises. He preys on vulnerable individuals searching for answers. You're one of them." Now she was defensive, her voice rising. "You don't know what you're talking about, Mark. You're just jealous that I'm trying to improve myself. You never believed in me." Her words stung, but I pressed on. "This isn't about me being jealous. I'm trying to protect you. Look at the way you've changed. You're not the same person. You're fixated on this man. This isn't self-improvement, it's delusion." She shook her head and I could see the gears turning in her mind, the conflict swelling beneath her surface. "I'm not delusional. Dr. Marks is helping me get in touch with my true self." "Your true self, or the version of you that he wants you to be?" I replied, frustration boiling to the surface. "Do you even hear yourself? You're living in a fantasy, Jenna, and I can't stand by and watch you drown in it." Suddenly, the floodgates opened. Her anger erupted as she launched into a tirade about how I didn't understand her, how I never supported her dreams, and how I was just trying to control her. Each word was like a punch to my gut, a gut-wrenching mixture of betrayal and heartbreak. I felt the tears welling up, but I refused to give in to despair. I had to stand my ground. "Please," I said, my voice breaking, "just look at this evidence. I'm not trying to control you, I want to help you see the truth. This man is not your friend. He's not helping you, he's using you." But she wasn't ready to hear it. She swept the papers off the table in a fit of rage, scattering them like fallen leaves. "You're the one who's manipulative. You're trying to ruin something that's important to me." At that moment, I felt a deep sense of loss. My wife, the woman I had shared my life with, was slipping further away. I could see the truth hidden beneath her anger, a flicker of fear. But she was too stubborn to confront it. My heart ached for her, yet I knew I had to push forward. "Jenna, please," I pleaded, desperation clawing at my throat. "I'm begging you. You're worth so much more than this. You don't need him to feel complete. You have me and you have so much potential without him." For a brief moment I saw a crack in her armor, a flicker of doubt, but it vanished just as quickly as it appeared. She crossed her arms defiantly, shaking her head. "I'll still go to Dr. Marks. You can't control me, Mark. I'll prove you wrong." The finality of her words felt like a cold slap to my face. I knew in that moment that I had reached a turning point. I had laid out the truth, opened my heart, and offered her a lifeline, but she was still drowning in her illusions. It was a painful realization. I could not save her if she didn't want to be saved. As she stormed out of the room, I felt a sharp pang of despair. I had hoped that my confrontation would shake her from her stupor, but instead, it had pushed her further away. I was left alone at the table, surrounded by the remnants of our life, the dreams we had shared, the laughter, the love. All of it felt irreparably broken, but I had to remind myself that this wasn't the end. It was simply the beginning of a new battle. I had taken the first step, and now I needed to prepare for the next phase. I would not give up on Jenna, even if she had given up on herself. I just had to figure out what that next phase would look like, how to break through her walls once and for all. In the days that followed the confrontation, the atmosphere in our home became strained, thick with unspoken words and unresolved tension. Jenna threw herself into her sessions with Dr. Marks, more convinced than ever that he was the key to unlocking her true self. Each day I watched as she drifted further away, her once familiar laughter replaced by a hollow echo that reminded me of everything we were losing. I found myself pacing the house, torn between anger and grief. I had laid bare the truth, armed with evidence and my heart wide open, yet it hadn't mattered. Jenna was enraptured by the very illusion I was trying to shatter. I had to find another way to reach her, and it was clear that simply confronting her again wouldn't work. I needed to go beyond words. I had to create a situation that would force her to see the reality she was avoiding. One evening, I decided to attend one of Dr. Mark's public seminars. It was advertised as an open discussion about the power of hypnosis and personal transformation. Jenna had mentioned it several times, eager to tell me how inspiring the discussions were. I felt it might be the perfect opportunity, a chance to confront the hypnotist directly and expose him in front of an audience. If I could get Jenna to see through the facade while she was there, it might be the wake-up call she needed. The night of the seminar arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves as I took my seat in the crowded auditorium. Jenna walked in shortly after, her face lighting up when she spotted me. "You came," she exclaimed, genuinely surprised. I forced a smile, trying to hide my anxiety. As the seminar began, Dr. Marks took center stage, his charismatic persona captivating the audience. He spoke with confidence, weaving tales of transformation and healing that drew everyone in, including Jenna. I felt sick to my stomach as he flashed his charming smile, the same smile that had ensnared my wife. I sat quietly, absorbing his words as the crowd hung on every syllable. There was a part of me that wanted to stand up and shout, to expose him right then and there, but I knew that would only validate his hold over her. Instead, I needed to wait for the right moment, one that would catch her off guard. After an hour of speeches and demonstrations, audience members were invited to share their experiences. That's when I saw my opportunity. I stood up, heart pounding, and walked toward the microphone. Jenna's eyes widened in surprise, a mix of fear and curiosity flashing across her face. "Hi, I'm Mark," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm here because my wife has been seeing Dr. Marks for hypnosis. She believes it's helping her, but I've been doing some research and talking to others who have been through similar experiences. I just want to know, how can you guarantee that this isn't just manipulation?" The room fell silent. Dr. Marks, caught off guard, wore a mask of composure, but I could see the slight twitch in his jaw. "That's a great question, Mark," he replied smoothly, "and I appreciate your concern. Hypnosis is a powerful tool when used ethically. Each individual's experience is unique, and my aim is to help them find their path." I pressed on, feeling the adrenaline surge. "But what about the testimonials I've found? People have come forward saying they felt exploited or manipulated. How do you respond to that?" Jenna's expression shifted, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. I could see her clenching her fists, perhaps feeling the doubt seep in. Dr. Marks remained calm, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Every profession has its critics, but I stand by my methods and my results. If someone feels they've had a negative experience, it's often due to their own expectations. Is it really their expectations, or is it your manipulation?" I shot back, my voice rising. "I've spoken to individuals who felt like you took advantage of their vulnerabilities." Suddenly, the audience began to murmur, and Dr. Marks leaned forward. "I believe in the power of personal agency. If someone feels they've been manipulated, it's important they take responsibility for their choices. Hypnosis doesn't make people do things against their will." "Isn't that a convenient excuse?" I shot back, shaking with emotion. "You're essentially saying it's their fault if they are misled, but you're the one leading them down this path." The tension in the room was electric. Jenna looked torn, her eyes darting between me and Dr. Marks. I saw the wheels turning in her mind, the conflict beginning to surface. "Mark, please stop," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, a plea mixed with fear and concern. "You're embarrassing yourself." But I pressed on, knowing this was my chance. "I'm embarrassing myself. No, Jenna, what's embarrassing is that you're letting this man control your life. You've lost sight of who you are, you're not the person I married. The crowd was now fully engaged, some nodding in agreement, others looking concerned. Dr. Mark's facade was slipping, and for the first time I saw a glimmer of uncertainty in his eyes. The audience was starting to turn, sensing the tension and perhaps questioning the validity of his methods. Mark, Jenna said again, her voice more firm now, this is not the place for this, I want to leave. No, I exclaimed, desperately trying to hold onto this moment. You need to see this, you need to understand what's happening. Dr. Mark stepped forward, attempting to regain control of the room. Let's not turn this into a personal attack, Mark. This is about understanding the benefits of hypnosis and personal growth. I encourage you and your wife to have a conversation after this. Why? So you can continue to manipulate her. I felt the heat rising to my face. I'm not going to let you ruin her life. The moment felt suspended in time. Jenna's face was flushed, her expression a whirlwind of emotions: anger, confusion, disbelief. I could see she was wavering, but Dr. Marks wasn't done yet. Mark, I think it's important to remember that this is a journey of self-exploration for Jenna. If she feels this is right for her, you should support her. Not tear her down in public, he said, expertly deflecting the conversation. But Jenna turned to him, her expression changing. I don't know, Dr. Marks. I thought this was helping me, but maybe I need to think about this more, she said, her voice trembling. At that moment, I felt a rush of hope. I could see the doubt creeping in, the cracks in her trust beginning to form. The audience was still watching, waiting with bated breath. Jenna, please, just think about everything we've discussed. You have so much strength within you. Don't let him take that away, I urged, my heart pounding in my chest. Dr. Marks looked furious, but Jenna was finally beginning to question. I could see it in her eyes. The seminar felt like it was shifting, not just in favor of me, but in favor of her awakening. Let's talk about this later, Mark. I need time, she said quietly, but I could sense the resolve growing within her. I nodded, feeling a mix of triumph and relief wash over me. I knew this wasn't over, but it was a step in the right direction. As we left the seminar, I could hear whispers in the crowd, people discussing what had just happened. I hoped it would lead to more conversations about Dr. Marks and his methods. Outside, the night air was cool against my flushed skin, but inside I felt a warmth of success. I had finally reached Jenna, at least a little. Now all I could think about was how to keep that door open and guide her back to the truth, wherever it might lead. After the seminar, things changed in subtle yet significant ways. Jenna was quieter, her laughter was less frequent, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she processed everything that had happened. It was like she was grappling with a new reality, one that didn't involve the comforting shroud of hypnosis and the alluring words of Dr. Marks. In the days that followed, I made it a point to be patient, to create a space where she could explore her thoughts without pressure. I knew she needed time to sift through her emotions and question her beliefs. I didn't want to push her away, but I also didn't want her to slip back into the comforting arms of the hypnotist, ready to drown in the delusions once more. She started to ask me questions about what I had learned, and I seized those moments to share some of the testimonials I had gathered, carefully avoiding anything that would push her back into denial. I wanted her to confront the truth on her own terms, to realize that she had been misled without feeling attacked. One evening, while we were sitting on the couch, Jenna turned to me. Mark, I've been thinking a lot about the seminar. It's like I can't shake the feeling that maybe I've been too trusting, she said, her voice tentative. The words were like music to my ears. I could feel hope blooming within me. You're not alone in feeling that way. It's okay to question things, especially when it involves your well-being, I replied gently. She nodded slowly, a look of contemplation crossing her face. I just thought he was helping me. He seemed so genuine at first, you know. But after seeing you confront him, I started to wonder if I was just another project for him. I reached out and took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. That's the thing, Jenna. You are not a project. You're a person with real feelings and potential. You don't need someone else to define who you are or tell you how to feel. Jenna looked down at our intertwined hands, her fingers trembling slightly. I guess I was looking for something to fill a void. I thought if I could tap into something deeper, I'd finally feel whole. You are whole, Jenna, I reassured her. You have so much to offer, and you don't need hypnosis or a stranger to validate that. It's all within you. For the first time in weeks, I saw a glimmer of the woman I married shining through the fog. It was as if the light was beginning to break through the dense clouds that had obscured her for so long. But as she began to awaken, self-doubt still lingered. I just don't want to feel lost again. It's terrifying, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I understand, I said softly. But you don't have to face it alone. We can figure this out together, rebuild whatever it is that you think you've lost. But it has to start with you believing in yourself. The following days were a mix of tension and relief. Jenna began to distance herself from Dr. Marks, canceling appointments and hesitating to reach out to him. I could feel the shift, but it wasn't a clean break. She was still hesitant, still grappling with the layers of doubt and confusion that had been piled on for months. One night after dinner, she caught me off guard when she said, "Mark, I want to talk to Dr. Marks one last time. I need to hear him out to confirm for myself that he isn't the person I thought he was." My heart sank, but I knew better than to react with anger. I took a deep breath. "Are you sure that's what you want? After everything we've discussed, do you think talking to him will help you?" "I need closure. I have to do this for myself," she replied, her voice steady. I nodded, understanding her need for resolution. "Okay, but just promise me that no matter what he says, you'll keep an open mind. Remember why you started questioning him in the first place." "Of course I will," she assured me, her expression resolute. That evening, as she prepared for the meeting, I felt a mix of anxiety and hope. I didn't want her to be swayed by his charm again, but I also knew she needed to walk this road on her own terms. I reminded myself that this was part of her journey, and I had to support her, even if it felt like stepping back into the lion's den. The day of the meeting arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves as Jenna got ready. She looked beautiful, but I could see the uncertainty gnawing at her. I wanted to tell her to be cautious, to guard her heart, but I also knew she needed the space to discover her own truth. When she left, I spent the time pacing around the house, my mind racing. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread, worrying that he would pull her back into his web of lies. Finally, the clock struck 5 and the door swung open. Jenna walked in, her expression a mix of relief and confusion. "I talked to him," she said, her voice trembling. "What happened?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. He tried to charm me again, but I was firm. I told him I was questioning everything and that I was stepping away from hypnosis. She replied, her voice gaining strength with every word. He was surprisingly calm, but I could see the anger brewing beneath the surface. He didn't like it. He said I'd regret my decision. "Jenna, that's huge. I'm proud of you," I said, relief washing over me. "But he also said some things that made me doubt myself," she admitted, her bravado slipping. "He mentioned my insecurities, my fear of being alone, and how I wouldn't be able to handle the world without his guidance. Those are his tactics, Jenna. He's trying to manipulate you into thinking you can't succeed on your own," I said firmly. "You've already taken the steps to reclaim your life. Don't let him take that away from you." As the evening wore on, Jenna opened up more about her feelings. She described how empowering it felt to stand up to Dr. Marks, yet how terrifying it was to confront her insecurities. "It's like I'm peeling back layers of myself that I didn't even know existed," she confessed. I listened intently, my heart swelling with admiration for her strength. "That's the process of rediscovery. It's okay to feel scared. It's part of finding your way back to yourself." As we talked late into the night, I felt the distance between us closing. We laughed, cried, and shared our fears, and I realized that there was still hope for us. Jenna was awakening from her stupor, and I was ready to support her every step of the way. However, I knew the battle wasn't over. Dr. Marks wouldn't take her rejection lying down, and I had a sinking feeling he would try to regain control. But this time, we would face him together. As I looked into Jenna's eyes, I saw a flicker of determination and strength that reminded me of the woman I fell in love with, a woman who was ready to reclaim her life. And I would be right there beside her, ready to fight against the darkness that had threatened to consume her. With that thought, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever came next, we would face it together. We were both ready to confront the shadows of the past and step into a future built on truth and authenticity. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to walk it with her, hand in hand. The days turned into weeks, and while the road to recovery was far from smooth, Jenna and I found ourselves growing closer than ever. She began to rediscover her interests outside of the hypnotist's world, revisiting hobbies that once brought her joy, like painting and jogging. Each day was a small victory, a step away from the fog that had enveloped her for so long. I watched with pride as she started to embrace her true self, and it felt like I was falling in love with her all over again. But I knew that Dr. Marks wouldn't just let her go without a fight. I had seen the way he operated. He thrived on control and manipulation, and I wasn't naive enough to believe he wouldn't try to reach out to her. And soon enough, I had my first confirmation of that fear. One afternoon, Jenna received a text from him while we were sitting in the living room together. I felt the air shift as she read it, her expression falling. "It's Dr. Marks," she said, her voice a mix of anxiety and apprehension. "Don't respond," I urged gently, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. "He's asking how I'm doing and if I've reconsidered my decision to stop our sessions," she replied, biting her lip. "It's a tactic, Jenna. He's trying to regain your trust, to pull you back into his web. You have to remember what you've learned," I said firmly. She took a deep breath, and for a moment I saw her hesitate. Then determination flickered in her gaze as she set her phone down. "You're right. I won't let him manipulate me again." That evening, we sat down together and Jenna shared the text with me. It was filled with empty platitudes and vague promises of renewal and growth. I could feel my anger bubbling beneath the surface. This man had preyed on my wife's vulnerabilities, and now he was trying to worm his way back into her life. But Jenna was stronger now, and I reminded her of that as we discussed how to handle the situation. "I think I should send a firm message," she said, her voice steady. "I want him to know that I'm done with his sessions and that I won't be responding to further communication." "Absolutely," I agreed, feeling a swell of pride for her newfound resolve. "You need to take control of your narrative. You're not just a chapter in his story, you're the author of your own life." With that, Jenna crafted a text that was clear and assertive. She told him she would no longer be attending his sessions and requested that he refrain from contacting her in the future. I stood by her side, holding her hand as she pressed send. As we sat together, a weight lifted from the room. It was one more step in reclaiming her autonomy, one more sign that she was no longer under his spell. Jenna looked at me, her eyes sparkling with a mix of fear and pride. "I did it," she said softly, and I couldn't help but smile. "Yes, you did." "I'm so proud of you," I replied, pulling her into a comforting embrace. But I also knew that the battle was not yet over. I was worried that Dr. Marks wouldn't take her rejection lightly. Over the next few weeks, I kept a close eye on her, watching for any signs of distress. I wanted to be her rock, her safe space while she navigated this new chapter. Together, we faced moments of uncertainty, but through it all, we showed each other unwavering support. Then one afternoon, just as we were settling in for a quiet evening, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from a local news outlet. They were interested in doing a feature about Dr. Marks and the warning signs of manipulative therapy practices. The article would include stories from individuals who had come forward, sharing their experiences. My heart raced as I read through the details, and I turned to Jenna, excitement bubbling within me. This could be huge. We can finally raise awareness about what he's doing. If we share your story, it might help others who are in the same position. Jenna's eyes widened as she processed the idea. "You think we should go for it? What if he retaliates?" I nodded, understanding her fears. "There's always a risk. But this is about more than just us. If we can expose him for who he is, we might prevent someone else from falling into his trap. It's time to take a stand." After much discussion, Jenna agreed, and together we reached out to the news outlet, sharing our story. The article was published within days, generating a buzz in the community. People began to comment and share their experiences, rattled by the stories of manipulation and deceit. Voices were rising, and a movement was starting to take shape. As the story gained traction, I felt a sense of empowerment grow within Jenna. She received messages from others thanking her for her bravery, sharing how her experience had inspired them to question their own situations. For the first time in a long time, I saw her confidence blossom. Then, the inevitable happened. A few days later, I received a phone call from an unknown number. It was Dr. Marks. I could feel my blood boil as I listened to his smug voice on the other end, feigning concern and disappointment. "Jenna has made a grave mistake, Mark. You've led her down a dangerous path," he said coolly. "This isn't over. I'll make sure she realizes the error of her ways." I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to unleash my anger. "You're not going to manipulate her anymore. She's stronger than you think, and we're not afraid of you." "Is that so? We'll see how long that lasts," he replied, his tone dripping with menace. As I hung up the phone, I turned to Jenna, who stood beside me, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "He's not going to give up so easily," I said, wrapping my arms around her for comfort. "But we can face this together. You have me, and we'll stand strong against him." In the weeks that followed, we became a united front, navigating the emotional fallout of Dr. Marks and his increasingly aggressive tactics. But with each challenge, Jenna grew more resilient, more empowered to reclaim her voice and identity. I watched with awe as she became a beacon of strength, not just for herself, but for others who had suffered at Dr. Mark's hands. Eventually, the local community rallied around her, showing support and solidarity after the article took off. We organized a community forum to discuss the dangers of manipulative practices, inviting survivors to share their stories. It was a cathartic experience for Jenna, and she found strength in hearing others' experiences mirrored her own. As the event unfolded, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with pride. Jenna stood on that stage, speaking with passion and conviction. She had transformed her pain into purpose, and the woman I had loved so deeply was finally emerging from the shadows. By the end of the evening, I realized something profound. This battle against the hypnotist had not only brought us closer, but had also helped Jenna rediscover her true self, a self that was brave, unapologetic, and full of potential. As we drove home that night, I turned to her, my heart swelling with love and admiration. "You did it, Jenna. You've come so far, and I know you'll only continue to inspire others." She smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mark. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." In that moment, I knew our journey was far from over, but whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. We had both learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and the power of standing up against deception. And as the stars twinkled above us, I realized that we were not just survivors of a painful experience. We were thriving, ready to embrace the future together, hand in hand.